I thought he didn't even notice me. Just the billionaire boss walking past the invisible security guard every morning. But one night, everything changed. Not because of who he was, but because of what I'd been through. I didn't know my scars would touch his heart and change both our lives. Before I take you into the craziest, most unexpected love story of my life, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell. Trust me, by the end of this story, you'll believe in second chances too. My name's Tasha. I'm 29, and for the past 2 years, I've been working nights as a security guard in a downtown high rise. It's the kind of job where most people don't even look you in the eye. They just flash a badge and keep it moving. I don't mind the quiet, honestly. I clock in, do my rounds, sip my coffee, and disappear into the background. People see the uniform and think they've got me figured out, but they don't know the nights I've cried myself to sleep. They don't know what I've survived just to stand here. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't looking for anything, really. I was just trying to breathe, trying to rebuild a life after too many pieces had fallen apart, healing from things no one could see. No spotlight, no story, just me, doing the best I could with the little I had left. And somehow, that was enough. He walked past me every single morning like clockwork. Same dark suit, same determined stride, same silence. I didn't expect anything more. After all, I was just the night shift security guard, standing near the glass doors with a clipboard and a flashlight no one really needed. But I noticed everything about him. His name was Ethan Cole. The name carried weight, like old money and whispered secrets. A tech billionaire, widowed young, and already back at the top of his game. People around the building talked about him like he was part myth. Too smart, too cold, too rich to be real. But to me, he was just this tall, tired-looking man who barely blinked when I nodded hello. I told myself I didn't care, but I kind of did. Not because I had a crush or anything. Not then. It was just strange how someone could be surrounded by noise, headlines, and wealth, but still feel lonely. That's what I saw in him. Not power, not money, but loneliness. The kind that's too proud to cry, too buried to name. I don't even think he saw me. Not really. Maybe I was just another uniform in the background of his fast-moving life. But there were small moments, even then, that made me wonder. Like the time he paused for a second too long at the door. Looked like he was about to say something, then didn't. Or when he dropped his pen and I picked it up, and he looked right into my eyes and said, "Thanks," in this voice that sounded like he hadn't used it all day. Or maybe all week. I started paying attention. Not in a weird way, just observing. I noticed he never smiled. Not once. I noticed he always left 5 minutes before midnight, even when meetings ran late. And I wondered who he went home to, if anyone. I wondered what his world looked like beyond those mirrored elevators and that black car that always waited for him. I didn't know then that I'd ever mean anything to him. Back then, I was just the girl behind the desk. But something in my gut told me our paths weren't crossing this often by accident. I just didn't know the reason yet. It was almost midnight, and the building had that eerie after-hours silence. Most floors were dark. I was sipping cold coffee and half listening to an old R&B playlist when I heard the elevator ding. Late, unexpected. I looked up, and there he was, Ethan Cole, alone, looking frustrated and slightly lost. That was new. He walked over to the front desk, phone in hand. "My driver's not picking up, left my keys in the office, and the garage door won't open," he said, sounding more tired than annoyed. For a second, I just stared. It was the first time he'd said more than 2 words to me. I offered to help. We walked through the hallway together, and he was quiet, like he didn't know how to be with regular people. I cracked a small joke to break the tension. Something like, "You billionaires have rough nights too, huh?" And to my shock, he laughed. Like, really laughed. It wasn't loud, but it was real, warm, human. In the parking garage, while I reset the security gate, he leaned against a concrete pillar and just watched me. "You're calm," he said softly. "Most people panic under pressure." I shrugged and said, "Life's pressured enough. Might as well be calm when you can choose to be." He looked at me like he didn't expect someone like me to say something like that. Like I had somehow peeled back a layer he didn't know he was still wearing. I didn't mean to impress him. I was just being myself. But I could feel something shift between us, something quiet but powerful. It wasn't love, not yet. It was awareness. That night, we didn't talk long, just enough for me to realize he was carrying grief like a shadow, close, heavy, always present. And maybe he saw something in me, too. Strength, maybe, or survival. I don't know. Before he left, he said, "Thanks again." Really? Then he paused, looked at me like he was about to ask a question, but didn't. He just smiled, small but sincere, and walked away. It was the first time I realized he actually saw me, and I couldn't stop thinking about that moment for days. Ask ChatGPT. After that night, something subtle shifted. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't suddenly become talkative or flirty, but he saw me now. Each morning when he passed through the lobby, he'd nod, sometimes say, "Morning, Tasha." The first time he used my name, I had to pretend it didn't make my chest tighten. It was small, but it meant something. One night, he showed up with 2 coffees. "Didn't know how you take it," he said, handing me one. So I guessed. It was exactly how I liked it, light, no sugar. I asked how he knew, and he just shrugged. "I notice things too," he said. We started talking more. Nothing deep at first. Books, music, random life stuff. I learned he liked jazz, hated cold weather, and had a soft spot for classic sci-fi films. I told him I used to write poetry before life got too loud. He asked to hear one. I laughed and said no, but the way he smiled told me he wasn't going to stop asking. Over time, the conversation started to shift. I told him about my past. Not everything, but enough. About growing up in foster care. About an abusive ex I'd had to fight my way out of. About losing my sister to cancer and how that changed everything for me. His eyes didn't leave mine once. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. Fully. Like my pain was worth hearing. He shared, too, quietly. He talked about his late wife, how she died suddenly, and how for years after, he stopped feeling anything at all. "People keep saying time heals," he said one night, "but sometimes time just teaches you how to pretend better." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said the only true thing I had, maybe feeling again starts with small things, like good coffee or someone remembering your name. He looked at me like I had said something holy, and I think in that moment he started falling for me, not in the fairy tale way, no candlelight or sweeping music, just a man realizing he didn't feel so numb anymore, and maybe, just maybe, I had something to do with that. And I was terrified, because I knew I was starting to feel something too. It was a Thursday night when he asked me. The building was quiet, the air thick with late-night stillness, and I was finishing up paperwork when he walked in. No assistant, no phone in hand, just him. He leaned on the edge of my desk, hands in his pockets, eyes softer than usual. "I'm going to this art exhibit tomorrow," he said, almost like he was talking to himself. "You'd like it. It's about resilience and healing." I raised an eyebrow. "And how would you know what I'd like?" He smiled. "I've been paying attention." I laughed, trying to brush it off, but he didn't. "Come with me," he said, quiet and serious. "As my guest." I froze, not because I didn't want to go, but because everything inside me screamed I didn't belong in his world. Ethan, I'm just the security guard, I said, forcing a smile. People will talk. He stepped closer, looked me dead in the eyes. Let them. I don't care about what people see. I care about what I feel, and I feel something when I'm around you. My throat tightened. For a second, I forgot where I was, forgot who he was. He wasn't a billionaire in that moment. He was just a man asking a woman to share something with him. I didn't say yes right away. I told him I'd think about it. But deep down, I already knew. I was scared of what it meant to say yes, because saying yes meant opening a door I had kept shut for so long, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what might come walking through. I finally said yes. The night of the exhibit, I wore the only nice dress I owned, simple black, nothing fancy, but I felt like I was wearing a spotlight. Ethan picked me up himself, no driver, no flash, just him in a dark blazer, waiting outside like it was the most normal thing in the world. At first, everything felt like a dream. He held my hand like it belonged there, introduced me like I mattered. And when I smiled, he smiled harder. But the dream cracked the moment we walked into that gallery. People stared, some whispered. One woman looked at me like I had spilled wine on her shoes, and I hadn't even spoken. It was subtle, but I felt it. The way the room shifted, the way people who had known Ethan for years suddenly became cold, curious, or just plain rude. They didn't have to say it. I could hear it loud and clear. Why her? I kept my chin up, tried to act like I didn't notice, but inside I was crumbling. I didn't belong here. I could feel the weight of every judgmental glance, every quiet laugh behind a wine glass. And worst of all, I started to believe them. Later that night, I pulled him aside. This was a mistake, I said, barely holding it together. You don't need someone like me dragging you down. He didn't even flinch. He took both my hands and looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Tasha, he said softly, you think I don't see what's happening? You think I haven't dealt with shallow people before? I don't care about their opinions. I care about you. I tried to look away, but he wouldn't let me. You belong with me, he said, like it was the simplest truth in the world. Not because you fit into my life, but because you changed it. That was the moment I realized love doesn't always show up in roses and fairy tales. Sometimes it shows up in quiet strength, in standing beside someone while the world watches and holding on anyway. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when everything finally spilled out. We were sitting on the floor of his penthouse. Yes, the same penthouse I used to guard from a distance. Now I was inside, barefoot, drinking tea with the man who used to walk past me like I was invisible. Life is strange like that. There wasn't any big event, no dramatic fight or romantic setup. Just silence, the kind that wraps around you and says, it's time. I told him everything that day, not just the pieces I had hinted at before, but the ugly raw parts, the foster homes that left more bruises than comfort, the nights I slept with one eye open, the years I spent shrinking myself just to survive. I told him about the man who said he loved me, but used fear like a leash. And the moment I finally walked away and swore I'd never let anyone close again, he didn't interrupt, not once. When I finally looked up, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Tears, real ones, quiet, restrained, but there. Then he told me his story, how he met his wife in college, how they built a life out of nothing, and how one random winter morning she collapsed in their kitchen, gone before the ambulance even arrived. He didn't cry at her funeral, didn't sleep for weeks, just poured himself into work until feelings became a thing of the past. I wasn't living, he said, voice cracking. I was surviving, just like you. We sat in that silence together, two people who had been broken in different ways, but somehow found each other in the middle of the mess. It wasn't a rescue. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was just two souls saying, I see your pain, and I'm not running from it. That day didn't end with grand promises or declarations of love, but it did end with him holding my hand and saying, I don't want to forget how this feels, being real with you. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't the beginning of something perfect. It was the beginning of something true. When my mom got sick, everything else blurred. The doctors found a mass, fast growing, aggressive. I tried to stay strong, but fear crept in quick, quiet, and heavy. I didn't tell Ethan right away. I didn't want to be a burden, but he knew something was wrong. I guess he always did. One night, I finally told him. I expected sympathy, maybe a hug. What I didn't expect was what he did next. He was supposed to fly to Tokyo the next morning, some billion-dollar deal, something high stakes and important. But he canceled it. Just like that, no hesitation. My place is with you, he said, holding my face like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. I couldn't believe it. You're walking away from a global deal for me? For us, he said. There's always another deal. There's only one you. People called him foolish. The press ran stories. His board panicked. He didn't care. He sat beside me in the hospital waiting room while my mom went through surgery, holding my hand, bringing me snacks, even cracking jokes just to make me smile. He didn't try to fix anything. He was just there, present, solid, mine. And in that moment, I didn't care what the world thought, because I had never been loved like that before. Life looks different now, but not in the way people might think. I'm not walking red carpets or flying private jets. I'm not wearing designer gowns or sipping champagne at charity balls. That was never me, and Ethan never tried to make it me. We live in a cozy brownstone just outside the city. It's quiet, peaceful. On weekends, we cook together. He's surprisingly good at pancakes, terrible at chopping onions. He still brings me coffee the way I like it, and I still tease him when he wears socks that don't match. That's our kind of love, soft, steady, real. I left the security job, but I didn't leave behind who I was. I still walk into rooms like I belong, because now I finally believe I do. Ethan never tried to change me. He just held space for me to grow, and in return, I did the same for him. We both carry our pasts. We don't hide from them. Some nights, he still dreams of his wife. Some nights, I still flinch when I hear yelling on the street. But we talk. We listen. We hold each other through it. He calls me my warrior. I call him my peace. And the truth is, this love wasn't about rescuing each other. It was about recognizing the strength we already had and choosing to build something new from it. No fairy tale, no perfect ending, just something better, something true. If my story touched your heart even a little, show some love. Like, comment, and subscribe, because I've got more stories where this came from. And just remember, no matter who you are or what you've been through, love can still find you.